Hey, everybody, welcome to this edition of Bible News Radio. I am Stacy Lynn. I'm an author, a biblical coach, and the host of this show. And one of the things I want to let you know is that today's episode is a follow up episode to the episode that we did last week when we talked about multi-level marketing companies and some of the cultic tactics that they use and narcissistic abuse system that these companies often use, right? The first thing I want to tell you right up front is that I personally don't have a problem with products that are sold by people who are in multi-level marketing companies. I mean, if somebody wants to sell a nutrition product or a makeup, I mean, I have Mary Kay. This is Mary Kay lipstick. I love Mary Kay lipstick, okay? This is honestly the only lipstick that I use because it's my favorite and it works great on my lips. So the products aren't the problem. I mean, maybe you've heard of LuLaRoe, who, they sold leggings, or maybe you've heard of any number of multi-level marketing companies. The reason I'm bringing this up isn't because of the products that are sold. It's because of the system in which it's sold and how it works. And it's because of the recruiting tactics that the people who get involved in these companies use, because that is a problem. That is a problem. And so, as I was doing my research, I stumbled across a number of different podcasts, and my guest today, Megan Williams, she has her own show, and the name of her show is called The Authenticity Experience. And I have to tell you that this is not a Christian show, okay? So if you check out her show, which I would encourage you to, because it's very interesting, you'll learn about people who have different backgrounds and how they basically came to be authentic, right? But Megan actually shares with us her experience, the 3 years that she actually spent with a multi-level marketing company by the name of Senegence, or LipSense, which I have actually used, and we talk about that a little bit in our interview. In this interview, you're going to learn about her background. You're going to learn about how she was recruited, which was very unethical, honestly. You're going to talk a little bit about money and how often these multi-level marketing companies will tell you to focus on this over here, but over here you're losing money, and they don't really teach you about profit and loss. You're going to learn about why she ultimately stepped out of this particular company. You'll learn about what affinity fraud is. That's affinity fraud. You'll learn a little bit about indoctrination, how that happens slowly, the whole grooming experience. She has a book that if you're involved in a multi-level marketing company or you've left one, she's going to tell you about that. And I just hope that you take away from this show that we're not bashing multi-level marketing companies. We're trying to help people who have been sold essentially a lifestyle, but really it's virtually impossible to get to that lifestyle because of the structure of how these companies are built. And ultimately, for me, it's the relationship aspect of the companies that it's what people, it's what they sell you besides the product, right? So for example, they sell you friendship, they sell you your dream, they sell you different things, which really in the end it's all just a facade, it's a lie. And For the majority of people, I will say that, not all, but for the majority. Um, and I just want you to be aware of some of the tactics that are very similar to cults that a lot of people, and Christians in particular, and one of the things that Megan talks about is how they target Christians, right? And in this case, too, she also talked about Mormons and how some Mormon women are targeted, which I find, I mean, that's a double whammy right there, right? So, I want you to kick back. I want you to enjoy the episode, and I want you to take notes if you need to, and all of that. I also want to remind you, Heart Tug International, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and if you like what we do, please go over to our website, hearttug.org, and check out the different things that we have going on. And if you feel led to donate to us and support the ministry, then you can also donate on our site there. So let's get on with the interview. All right. Hello, everybody. Hey, I want to welcome you to this edition of Bible News Radio. And today, you know what? Hey, I already told you a little bit about what our show is going to be about. And maybe you watched our show a couple days ago, well, last week, that we did about me trying to explain to everybody that multi-level marketing companies are a lot like cults, right? Some people would even actually say they are cults. I can tell you, having been in that world for a while, and you know, and stuff, and having studied cults for quite a while, that there are definitely a lot of similarities. So I was listening to some podcasts, and today's guest actually is a result of the podcast that I was listening to, and I actually reached out and I was so excited when she said yes, she would come on and share her story. So I want to let everybody know you can go over to Spotify and you can find this podcast. It's called The Authenticity Experiment. And those of you who know me know I'm all about being real, right? And so I love this. And Megan Williams is the host, and she's got a story to tell you about her experience in multi-level marketing. So, you know what? Hey, thanks for coming on my show. You know, we're MLM sisters, right?
Right. Like I'm so excited that you reached out and that we get to have this conversation. Because I feel like this is a conversation that needs to be had on larger levels with people, and just educating folks on what are red flags that we need to look for in life in general, and how do we kind of give away pieces of ourselves when we ignore them. And multi-level marketing is definitely one of those things that likes to make people sacrifice pieces of who they are in order to become something that isn't authentic and isn't real, and does some damage to folks.
Oh yeah, it does so much, and you know that. So, but let's start with you first, okay? So let everybody know a little bit about your background, just because, you know, I want people to know who you are as a person, and then we'll talk about your experience, because that's how I roll.
So my name is Megan Williams. I am a licensed therapist in the state of Arizona. I've done behavioral health since 2005. I've worked with a variety of populations. I primarily served a substance use population, which comes with a lot of other issues that get tacked on, trauma, anxiety, depression, untreated mental illness, the whole nine. I spent a bunch of time working in incarceration settings, so dealing with people who have some personality disorder traits in addition to extensive trauma.
Yeah.
I also am very trained and educated on assisting folks who have experienced high pressure groups and cults of personality, and those kind of situations where they get kind of forced into becoming something, or engaging in something that makes them doubt who they are as people and starts to change the way they view themselves in the world. And I've worked with some folks who've experienced religious abuse,
Yep.
Which is something that we all know happens. We don't like to talk about it, but it does happen in some circles because human beings always screw up a good thing.
Yep.
And so I currently am the hostess of the Authenticity Experiment. It's kind of like my passion project, a podcast that I just kind of started throwing together in the springtime. I also wrote a book for individuals getting out of multi-level marketing called Cutting Ties. And it is
Oh,
a self-guided workbook for folks that are dealing with getting out. What does that mean? Some of the things they may have witnessed, learning how to talk about the feelings that have come up with their experiences. And it's also helpful for folks that are in therapy with somebody that isn't familiar with some of the tactics and things that they may have experienced. And it allows somebody to do the work on their own, but also still then utilize it with a professional so that they can get the help they need to deal with the larger issues that they may have experienced.
nice. Okay, and is that available on Amazon?
Yep, it's available on Amazon all over the world. I opened it up for that purpose. The reason I chose Amazon to do it. It's available in paperback and an ebook for folks that prefer the digital format. If you get it on the ebook, I highly recommend getting a workbook or a notebook to kind of do your answers in instead of just answering it in your head, because there's something very therapeutic about putting it on paper and actually seeing it for what it is.
Yep. Yes. All right. So everybody hear that. Okay, so Megan's got some cred, right? She literally you got credentials. You're not stupid, you got higher education, and all that. And it's funny because I had a couple of people. I haven't really gotten any like backlash from the show that I did kind of exposing it. I've gotten some people say, "Why are you, doing this?" But I'm like, look, because when you have abuse and you have the Christian world covering it, which believe me, there's nothing that infuriates me more than religious and spiritual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
It because usually it covers sexual abuse, coercion, and all that stuff. And usually it's because of people who are narcissistic, right? There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that narcissistic abuse that's there. And that's how actually I got kind of suckered into the whole situation I was in. Um, so that's cool. So, all right. You work with personality disorders, which, you
Mm-hmm.
know, one of the things I learned, and I can't remember if it was your show or somebody else's, but that typically there tends to be a lot of mother trauma sometimes with people who get involved in MLMs because there's there's that control that I guess maybe unconsciously we're attracted to. I don't know. Have you seen that?
We we tend to repeat what we know.
True. Yeah.
So if we have experienced a high pressure parent or caregiver, we respond to high pressure people. It's why individuals who get sucked into legitimate cult type dangerous cults end up in other ones, because that authoritarian control becomes familiar to us, and we want to repeat what feels familiar and what feels safe, even if it's not safe.
Yeah. Well said. And you know what? You just taught me something, and it never even clicked until just now. So there you go. Okay. Okay. So, all right. So way back in 2005, you were doing all this stuff. That's when I actually got my master's, was in 2005. So that was quite some time ago. And have you noticed that back then there wasn't nearly as much information out there as there is today?
Absolutely. So it just in general respect of multi-level marketing, I didn't even know what the heck that was.
Yeah.
Right? Like I grew up in the Midwest, which it's everywhere in small town USA, but it really wasn't around in my hometown other than Longa Burger Baskets, which most people don't know is multi-level marketing, and
Yeah.
Avon, but that was before Avon was an MLM. They were just direct sales, and maybe some Mary Kay, but that didn't come until I was a teenager. So I didn't know about any of this, like what that was. My mother may have bought some Pampered Chef stuff, like some Tupperware stuff, but like I didn't know anything about that because my mom didn't do it, and she didn't have parties at the house or anything like that. Um, but I feel like in general, because we have information available at our fingertips, we have been able to learn a lot more about how different types of groups are able to operate and expose some of the tactics that they use, right? So like people aren't getting sucked into religious cults as much because, you know, we have all of this information out there about what they do and how they work. People are more skeptical about supporting general businesses that don't seem legit or seem like too good to be true. We're able to do a whole lot of research and rabbit holing on things to find the information that we need in order to make informed decisions about anything.
Yes.
Um, and in my line of work, it's really cool because I feel like the information age has allowed us to destigmatize mental health
Yes. Yeah.
because we're able to understand it. We're able to look and say, oh, these are the criteria. Oh, there are lots of people who have this. Oh my goodness, this is actually a legitimate thing and not just, you know, my person is, you know, they're just a jerk. Like they legitimately just have a chemical imbalance that's making their brain do funky things. So it's good and bad all at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting too because one of the things too that you just said is about, just normalizing it, right? I mean, that's one thing my therapist says to me. It drives me crazy actually. I'll say something and she's, "Oh, well, that's kind of normal for everybody." And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, "Would you just shut up?" Stop telling me I'm normal. But anyway, am I really normal? But it's true, especially when you look at anxiety and
Mhm.
fear and depression, and especially in the age of COVID. Hello, we're all crazy, right? During this time.
The last 2 years took a lot of people to their breaking point. They were able to keep it together just enough. And then the last couple of years, the floodgates have opened for individuals because we walked through a worldwide collective trauma.
Uh huh. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
like people dying in mass amounts, that's a collective trauma.
yeah, and I mean, I can tell you, I did, we all did our work and networking online during that time. I talked to so many men, when I was doing my one-on-ones with people, because of the MLM I'm in, I was doing one-on-ones with people, and I don't push I mean, I don't push my thing, which anyway, long story short, a lot of the men would say, "I can't stand living here. I just, my kids are here," and just the marriages that were under stress because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there'd be no way that they would normally talk about that if they were having issues at home, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
yeah, the collective trauma is a very real thing, and I think a lot of people don't even think about that because the media in general tends to want to divide everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the left versus the right, the left hates the right hates the left. But you all have the same problems, just so you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Right.
So, all right. Well, so tell me a little bit about the company that you were involved in, some of the stuff that happened. Like,
So
how did you get recruited? I guess that's the first thing.
I'm very open about how I got recruited because it's the big motivator as to why I started speaking out and doing the work that I've been doing around educating and helping people heal. So I was recruited out of something that I shared at a 12-step meeting. I've been in recovery since 2008, and I was very vulnerable one night and I shared some stuff that was going on with my family. I had a young child. I was finishing my master's. I was doing all the things and working 40 plus hours plus it in like it was a really difficult time for me. And this woman took what I had shared and decided that that was what she was going to use to leverage recruiting me. And mind you, she first talked to me about it in like August, and I didn't give in until like January because to me it didn't make sense that I'm supposed to spend money in order to make money. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't have the money for the upfront costs. I don't have the money to have stock on hand. None of that makes sense to me. Like I don't understand how you're saying this is going to be good for me. And at one point in time, I got fairly desperate and I ignored that voice in my head that said, this doesn't make sense. Because even as a professional, there are times when my impulse control, when I'm stressed, is gone. It's
Sure.
just gone. And I was like, you know what? I've tried everything else. Let's try this. Um, so I was involved. It was a makeup MLM. It's called Senegence. Most people know it lip scents, the lipstick that doesn't come off, but will probably give you a chemical burn.
It did me. I'll tell
Yeah,
you my experience with somebody after you finish.
yeah.
But yeah.
And you know, it didn't really stay on me very long either, but they don't want to tell you that it depends on your pH levels and like whatever. But anyway, so I never tried the product. And I think the biggest red flag for me was that when I told this woman, no, I didn't want to sign up to be a distributor underneath her, she didn't even try to make me into a customer. She didn't even try to have me sample the product. So it wasn't ever about the product, right?
Yeah.
And these are things that I've learned, you know, after taking some hindsight and looking at stuff, but they were things that never sat quite right with me. So I did the deal for like 3 years. I was very clear I was not going to recruit. I had a full-time job working as a therapist, and I wasn't going to get rid of that to sell makeup. That just was never going to happen. I worked too hard, too long, did way too much schooling, had way too much financial stuff tied to that schooling that I was not going to give it up for anything. And I ended up, I did the way that I did stuff was fairly smart enough financially that at the end of it all, when I looked at my balance of how much I spent and how much I sold and that kind of true profit and loss, I pretty much broke even. If I wouldn't have had so much personal use stuff that I was using to be a quote unquote product of the product,
Right.
then I would have actually had a profit because I wouldn't have been using all that stuff on myself. But these are the things that we weren't taught. We weren't taught to do a true profit and loss. We were just taught to talk about how much our gross sales were and how much money we made at parties. And nobody really, and they kept telling us certain things were write-offs when they are absolutely not write-offs. I'm a 1099 contractor as it is. I know what I can write off and what I can't write off. So they would tell us, you can write that off. I'm like, no, you can't. They're like, we can write, no, you can't. You can't write those things off. You need to stop telling people that.
Yeah.
The straw for me that because at one point I'm like, okay, well, I'm just done even trying to sell. I'm just going to keep my discount. The thing that broke it for me was when I saw how shady the owner and her husband are about the way they influence politics.
Okay.
They're shady. Like they are people that hide their donations under his name so that it doesn't get tied to the company. She is lobbying actively to remove all the restrictions on front loading. So for people that don't know, front loading is when a multi-level marketing company encourages their reps to buy a ton of stuff to sell because you can't sell from an empty cart. And all this stuff typically ends up sitting in somebody's garage, in their closet, in their basement, and it never gets sold because it's just sitting there. So she has lobbied hard to get that restriction removed so the FTC can't hold them accountable for it. That's not okay. That is essentially saying we want our reps to be our customers and buy all of our product and then have to sit on it because you only have a certain amount of time before you can return it because it's cosmetics. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done. No, I'm not doing it. And so I decided to get out. I started kind of talking about my experience with some folks. Early on, I got asked to be on a podcast to share my experience, the Life After MLM podcast. Mm-hmm. And my decision was solidified when my recruiter came after me. And the way she chose to come after me. And if she sees this, cool. Like I'm at the place now where like, I don't care what that woman thinks of me or what she says about me because she did every single thing that was predicted she would do. And so all she did was prove exactly what those of us that educate against these tactics are saying. She told people that the issue was me, that I didn't work hard enough. She gaslit my experience. She defended the fact that she was actively recruiting in 12-step meetings and grieving mom groups. And when she wasn't saying, it's low.
That's low. That's low.
And when she was to say, I don't do that, I have a video recording of her on a YouTube training for her new MLM company where she encourages that kind of behavior. So for me, as you can tell, I get very passionate. It really lights me up because those are two places where people are supposed to feel safe. You don't get to use what's called affinity fraud to make yourself appear as a safe person, to then get this person to sign up under you for your financial gain. You don't get to do that and then tell me I just had a bad experience. No, honey, you're doing shady stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, I will say, um, boy, I'm a right fighter to the end, man. I tell you, I'm a Christian some people don't like because I tell the truth, not because of whatever, but I I will tell you this isn't what I'm what I want to share. It doesn't have to do with the MLM that I'm currently in, which I actually love,
Mhm.
by the way. And it's I haven't had that experience with this, but the experience I had that led up to this was with a business coach who was top 10 direct sales internationally for a decade. That's their tagline: dream it, believe it, achieve it. You got to be a product of the product. Every direct sales mantra under the sun I learned from this person. And you being in recovery in the 12 steps, I happen to know for a fact that this person met their spouse who was with Amway a million years ago, which is a cult basically. Um, that they met in a 12-step program, and you know this person's siblings are drug addicts, and they're a workaholic, but they prey on people. They prey on business owners, and they manipulate. And this is something I don't know if you know anything about it, but are you familiar with NLP at all?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So one of the things that I saw in some of that grooming, because you said that this person that preyed on you, she basically groomed you, right, from
Mhm.
August to January, right? I'm trying to remember if that was your show I heard that on, but let's talk about the grooming thing, because nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about it when kids are groomed and they're being abused
Mhm.
by an abuser. Like, a lot of us have gone through child sexual abuse. I have.
Mhm.
My perpetrator groomed me.
Mhm.
People who are in domestic violence situations, often they get
Mhm.
groomed. You got that cycle of violence and the love bombing, all that stuff. Um, and if unless you're in recovery for any length of time, the red flags, you just ignore them because you're trained to ignore them. I like my mother
Mhm.
trained me to trust the wrong people on purpose, right?
Right.
So like, so you could see that this person was starting to groom you, even though you recognized it in, but you wanted to think the best, right?
Mhm. Right. I actually have a section in my workbook that talks about different ways that people get groomed.
Okay,
One
cool.
of them is the commonplace, just the acceptability of the products, right? Like the big names are that are known to the point where we refer to all plastic, like throwaway plasticware, as Tupperware.
Right,
But Tupperware is a brand,
right.
right?
Hmm.
It's that, like, for me, I grew up and the Avon catalog was in with all the other catalogs. Again,
Right.
at the time, Avon wasn't MLM, it was legitimate direct sales. There was no recruiting, there was none of that. However, when they switched to MLM, I didn't know, right? I didn't know what
Yeah.
that was. It looks like Beauty Counter having products in legitimate brick and mortar stores. It looks like Beachbody offering Groupons or having ads on TV, right? Buy the product. Well, you can only buy the product if you buy it from a rep, right? And then they want you
Right.
to sign up to be a coach. We're also groomed by some of the expectations of society, hustle culture, diet culture,
Yep.
telling, especially women. There are a lot of men involved in multi-level marketing, but women especially are groomed in society to believe that we are not good enough the way that we are,
Yep.
and so most multi-level marketing companies are selling products to help women overcome the ways that you're not enough. So not just the products, but the opportunity,
Right.
right? You're not good enough if you're not contributing to the household, if you're a stay-at-home parent. I'm gonna tell you right now, stay-at-home parents have the hardest job in the history of anything,
Yes,
because
they
they're
do.
doing the work of like six people full time. They don't get a day off, and everybody tells them that they're not really working. Like, no, that's not true.
Yeah, I don't want to
That's
hit
not
those
a thing.
people.
Right? Like, I'm like, no, that's not accurate. I'm not a stay-at-home parent because I can't hack it. Just saying.
Right.
It's way too much work for me. I would much rather go into my office and do other
Yeah. My my
things.
ther my therapist just told me, she's like, you need a sabbatical. You haven't had a break in 18 years from your show. And I'm like, I literally just said to her, I said, what am I gonna do? She's like, you're gonna rest. And I'm like, but you don't
Relax,
understand. And she's like, no, I do. But
right?
yeah.
And then some of the ways that people get groomed by recruiters. So, one of there's a financial multi-level marketing company, and I'm not going to say their name because they are ruthless.
Okay.
They post jobs on Indeed and LinkedIn, like they're actually going to hire you for a real job, and then you show up to a recruiting event that's full of indoctrination, and they ask questions, and this is universal, right? So they ask questions like, "Well, don't you want to make more money? Don't you want to retire early? Wouldn't you like a better car? Wouldn't you like a bigger house? Wouldn't you like free travel? Wouldn't you like to be able to spend more time with your family?" They ask questions that inherently the answer is going to be like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I do. I want those things. Because who doesn't want those things in
Right.
a capitalist society? We all want those things, right?
Hmm.
So that's part of the grooming process. Then what they do is they indoctrinate slowly. And it usually starts nowadays, it'll start with social media groups where you are added for the team.
Yep.
And there's a lot of welcome posts and love bombing, and they use a lot of language that you don't understand yet because it's code language for the industry in general and then for that specific company. So then you start asking questions, and then they start answering them, and then you start to feel important. And the first couple times you make a sale or you recruit somebody, you get this massive dopamine hit,
Yep.
right?
Hmm.
You get
I,
told by these top leaders like that this is the only way. Like, you look at the lifestyle that they're presenting you with, and some of them that is not even real, right? Some of them it's not real. Like, there's a top leader in a multi-level marketing company who's actually being sued because she got evicted from her house that she said she owned, but she was renting. So it's
yeah.
not always
I,
real. It's all
I
illusion.
I can tell you, I did a background check on a number of the top level people that I know in direct sales, and I found some interesting things. So what you just said was very, it's true.
Right.
It's
And
true.
when you start to ask questions, they kind of shut down your questions, and they're like, just do it. It'll be fine. Do it scared. Don't listen to the haters. Just do it scared. Like, they automatically start establishing this us versus them mentality,
Hmm.
right? And then they get you to question yourself when things don't seem right. Like, for me, I've worked in retail before, and I've worked in retail where like our sales counted. We weren't commissioned, but like we needed to hit numbers in order to like get our raises and get the good schedules and things like that, right?
Right.
I would never have given a lead on a customer to one of my coworkers for a sale. Like, that's not going to happen unless it was about gaming, and then I would, like, I don't game. But like anything else, like, I'm not going to give that sale to somebody else. But multi-level marketing asks you to recruit your competition and sometimes to recruit your best customers, which means that you're now no longer getting those sales numbers, which goes against everything I've ever been taught about how sales and business run.
Yes.
But they get you to be okay with it.
Yeah, and I never even thought of it that way. Again, so that that is so true, but it's because of this, right? It's because of
Yep.
it's because of where the money flows. And they, going back to the dopamine hit thing, I remember when I first learned sales, I got my first sale, I, which was from obviously the person that recruited me. Um, I remember thinking, oh, this is great. And then when they give you like levels that you can meet, if you can do this and this, and you get this and you get a big bonus. And I started calculating it, going, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to work 20 hours to make $100 bonus. That's insane. I can go sell, an hour of therapy.
Right. Or if you spend $200 by the end of the month, then you'll get a $400 bonus. No, you're only getting a $200 bonus because you had to spend $200 in order to get that 200. Like,
Right.
no, like, no, let's not do that. They will hide information, and that's one of the ways that they groom. And they don't necessarily do it in ways that's like overt. Like some of it's overt, right? So like some companies don't publish an income disclosure statement, which is really important to look at because it shows the actual numbers that the company is reporting.
Right.
They either don't have one or they don't tell you that that's available to you while you're being recruited or even after. Like I talk to reps all the time that have no clue that these things even exist. They
Yeah.
think I'm making it up. And I'm like, I'm getting it directly from your company website. These are the numbers. Like, if you're okay with this, then okay. But like, you got to know what you need to walk in with your eyes completely wide open. But then they'll do things like take stuff that you're already kind of vulnerable about and twist it as like they call it your why. So they
Right.
want to know what's your why. Why do you want to do this? Well, I want to do it to make money. Isn't that why we do any job? Because we want to make money. Like otherwise,
Right.
why would I work? I go volunteer. That's the point of being a volunteer versus that job. But they use that then against you. So when you decide that you might not want to do it, or you're on the fence, or you're not really pushing as hard as you could, they're like, don't you want to take your daughter to Disney? That's what you said. You said you wanted enough money to take your daughter to Disney. Don't you want to show your kid what it means to be a provider and to own something of their own and all of these things? And they twist it.
Yeah.
They're looking for opportunities. They're looking for pain points, which is a sales technique, right? The
Right.
problem is that they're using a legitimate sales technique to then manipulate somebody later on. And not everybody. I know some amazing people who are in multi-level marketing, and those of us that come from the compassion education,
Right.
we recognize the fact that all people in that are signed up as sales reps are both victims and perpetrators. Even the top 1% are still victims because they are buying into what the CEOs and the C-suite are telling them is
Yeah.
true. And even the amount of money that they are making, even if they're making millions of dollars as the top 0.1%, the CEO is always rep number one. So they are always making double to triple what the top sales rep is.
Yeah.
Always.
And I can tell you, I know somebody um, who is a top level person in a company, and when they found out another friend of mine was making way more money than they were, doing less things, still in sales,
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't believe it. So it was. I'm like, yeah, and but the thing is again, they prey on that. They target people who are, this is something that I, you know, I know for me, I knew when I was being groomed. I knew it. I knew when I was being groomed. I could feel it. I knew exactly what was going on, but I didn't stop it because because I'm a compassionate person. I wanted to think the best of that damn person, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and and so a lot of people who are in the mental health field, like we are, or me in particular, ministry, you get completely targeted, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because of your good nature. And I'm like, who does that? I just yeah, just
Well, and that's one of the things too that I think is really interesting, right? Is that there is a strong tie between multi-level marketing and faith manipulation. There's one MLM that was doing baptisms at their annual conference,
really
like mass baptisms in a hotel pool.
did not know that.
Yeah, and for me, like, okay, cool. Like, I'm all about people getting to have the ability to develop a faith of their choosing in whatever manner they're choosing. But when you're riding the high of a 3-day event where you haven't been sleeping, because they don't really let you sleep a whole lot. There's a lot of dopamine hits. There's a lot of flashing lights. There's a lot of flashy talk.
Yeah.
There's a lot of if you're just stronger in your faith, then you'll be better in your business. Like that's not okay. And there's certain multi-level marketing companies that specifically target Mormon women.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, I can trust her because she's Mormon like me. That's that affinity fraud too, right?
Yep.
But they will take this and they will twist it. There's a gentleman, and I'm blanking on his name right now, but he does a lot of work on the tie between Mormonism and multi-level marketing. and the use of oils as a priesthood thing in their faith.
Okay.
And women aren't allowed to give priesthood blessings. So the oils give the women kind of an in to take control of some of their personal power, or to like it's I'm not explaining it well, but he's amazing. I think it's like Ryan McKnight or McNamara or something like that. But they also do this, like if you're going to church and you're sitting next to somebody, or a Bible study and you're sitting next to somebody and you're getting along with them and you're chatting and they seem really nice, because they probably are very nice and they're probably a really amazing human being that just happened to get roped into one of these things, and they're telling you all about this great opportunity, and it's a bunch of Christian women, or a bunch of, the owners say that they're Christian and it's a Christian company and da 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 da. It's like, well, then it can't be bad.
Right.
It can't be bad.
Yeah, of course
But
not.
my reality is that a lot of the owners that say that they're Christian exemplify a lot of the things that real Christians fight against.
Well,
Like,
I will say that I called out a top leader in the company I am. I asked him flat out. I said, "Do you do this with your Bible? Do you read your Bible this much? Do you do a 90-day run for your Bible and Bible reading?" He blocked me on Facebook after he cussed me out in a private message.
that's fun. I'm pretty sure that is not what Jesus would do. I'm just saying. I don't think that was a thing that he would have done.
No, probably not.
But I mean, we don't know, but I'm pretty sure that's not something that he would have done.
No, probably not. And oh, Megan, it's like we've already talked almost 45 minutes. This is like,
I get to chatting.
I know, but okay, so I know. So we got like 10 minutes left, which is okay. All right, so we gotta. So yeah, obviously I want to talk to you a lot longer, just because. Going back to Senegence though, which is what you were with, or Lip Sense, I will tell you that. I won't say anything about the person, but the product itself, yes, it burned my lips. I bought like three. I don't know how many I bought, but I spent money I didn't have, and I saw it's just sitting there in my makeup drawer. I can't use it. But I
Throw
was
it
told,
out.
yeah, I was told the same
Throw it
thing.
out.
Oh, I was just like, eh.
Well, the gaslight, the way what they would tell us is that, first of all, you probably didn't shake the product enough, and I'm like, that's legitimate, because the very
Yeah,
first ingredient is denatured alcohol. So
yeah,
yeah, if you don't shake that enough, like I'm talking 5-10 minutes of shaking this tube of lipstick, it's
okay,
gonna
yeah.
burn you, because it's been sitting in a warehouse for how long, right?
Mary
Um,
Kay is my favorite.
I don't wear lipstick. Like, I'm gonna be real. When I got recruited into this thing, I did not wear makeup on a daily basis, because I worked in an all male residential facility. The last thing
Okay,
I wanted to do was look attractive, like
right.
on any level.
See what you mean.
I did not have to care. I'm like, jeans, social worker top knot, polo shirt, done.
Right.
Right. But then they would tell you, oh, well, you're just dehydrated, or it's your lips detoxing. Your lips don't detox. That's not a thing.
Right.
And then, like, the other, well, then they're removing it wrong. Make sure they're drinking lots of water. I'm like, no, you're gaslighting people who are telling you this is creating a chemical burn. And I experienced it about year 2, because I started going through some hormonal shifts, because that's what we do when we get older. And I used the product for a party. And for the next 2 days, my lips were so chapped and so dry and so gross.
Ooh.
And for me, like, I was very big on, I just use the glosses on a daily basis, like glosses where I live. And they were like, oh, you just didn't gloss enough. And I'm like, that's not what's happening here. It was
Right.
because of my hormone shifts. And another woman who had worked for the company reached out for me, and she's like, it's your hormones. So you need to not put any Senegence products, not even the gloss, on your lips for at least 2 weeks.
Yeah. Use
I'm like, all
chapstick.
right, cool. Like, let's do it. Well, chapstick is evil, don't you know?
Mm, yeah.
Some of the things that, even like, I cringe about some of the things that I said and the things that I did in pursuit of a sale, right? Like, I cringe at that. And like the fact that I, who am very well educated, but I didn't have the time to do the real research on things. Like, well, enough of these people are saying it, so like I guess that's what it is, right? Like, okay, cool. Like, I'm not a makeup girl. I don't know, right? And I cringe about it. Like, there's just some I look at stuff, and since I got out, I've had friends that have been like, you know what, Megan, when you were doing that, like, you were not you. And
Yeah.
I don't know what that was, or who you became when you had to do those things. Or like, but I'm really glad you stopped doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, going back to your podcasts about being authentic, right? The thing that I saw that um that people don't understand, and I think that's why I love, your show and other people's, because frankly, when I first came across the anti-MLM community, I was like, these people are just disgruntled or whatever. But I'm open-minded. I'm so open-minded. My brain hasn't fallen out. But what I will say is that I do want, like, to hear all of, the different points of view, because even if I don't agree with it, I want to hear it, right? And I'm very tolerant of things I don't agree with, but whatever. But when I started hearing the stories and the internal dialogue that people had, I was like, that's why I want to bring this to my audience, because I know people who are really into these things, and it's like, um, I have um, I wrote this book.
I love
it,
it.
it's a shameless plug for my book, but the number one, the whole theme of my book is that the relationship is the cure. When I was in my training, my supervisor said at the end of almost every supervisory meeting, he would say the relationship is the cure. You're going to go in, your clients are going to come and see you. They don't care what modality you use, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. The relationship is the cure. And so it's like so many people get wrapped into the MLMs because, well, yeah, they want money, but some people want friends. Some people, want
Yeah.
power.
Mm-hmm.
Some people genuinely want to do a party. I'm not that girl. I'm not that girl. I'm not a recruiter. I'm not that girl. Um, I'm like, hey, I'm all about justice, and,
Mm-hmm.
and all that. But
Right.
it's just like, but then when they prey on your vulnerability, which is a hard word for me to say, when they prey on that
Mm-hmm.
and then they use it to your advantage, that's such a cult tactic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Absolutely.
did you see the Vow on HBO?
Yes, I did. It's
Okay,
very hard to watch, but yes, I did.
yeah, but the thing in there that the big thing that Sarah talks about is they didn't know they joined a cult. They thought they joined a good cause because it was a business
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurial
Right.
coaching program that they were a part of, right? So I yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
Right. What I love is so for me, I my issue is with the companies. My issue is with the
right,
C-suite. My issue is with the founders. My issue is with the people that are setting out to set up a scam, to scam people, and they know they do that. I want to protect people from those people.
right,
And for me, I don't walk through this, and I do a lot of stuff on TikTok, and my Instagram is pretty private now just because Instagram is like the wild wild west anymore. But for me, it's about like, look, if you want to leave, if you're ready, if this is what you want, because you're starting to see signs that this isn't healthy for you, then that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you leave. And I'm here to tell other people how to make a better decision and to ask questions and make an informed decision. And
right,
if you ask all the questions and you make you get all the education and all the information from all the sides about these things, not just the person trying to recruit you, then and you still want to make that decision, then okay. But do it with your eyes wide open. Do
right.
it knowing all of these things. And do it knowing that if you're going in thinking you're going to change the way that this business structure operates, that that's not going to happen because it relies on people to turn into predators in order. Because if you know it's a scam and you're scamming people, then
Yep.
you're a predator. And if you're okay with that, if you're okay with that identity, then fine. If you're not okay with that identity, that's what people like me are here for.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here to help you reconcile that. I'm here to help you deal with finding who you are again and maybe applying some of those skills that you learned about yourself that you had all the time, all along, right? Like you always
Right.
had them. You didn't need MLM to give them to you. You've had them. How can we apply those somewhere else that might be more lucrative and less going against your values and morals of who you are as a person? Like,
Yeah.
because we can do that.
Yeah.
But if people want to do what they want to do, and people want to argue with me on the internet, and I'm like, I'm not here to argue with you. I'm not going to invalidate your experience, but I'm also not going to let you invalidate the experience of all these other people that I've talked to, that have shared with me, that share openly, that I've seen in all the different forums. You don't get to tell me that their experience didn't happen just because it's not yours. Um,
And what
and
you're,
just being open about it.
yeah, what you guys are doing, and what I'm actually trying to help do, at least in this little venue I have, is let people talk who've been afraid.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Because,
Everybody's voice is important.
well, yeah, but so many people, they won't not talk. I can tell you what happened to me with a business coach. I couldn't talk to anybody for 4 years about it. No, and you know who I am. I'm public, and I can't
Right.
tell you everything that happened, but yeah, I think that that's so important. So uh, our time is up, but I
We
hate
have
that.
come to the end of our session.
But I do have to, I want you to come back. But
Absolutely.
I do have. So tell people where they can get you, because then I can put that in the notes and stuff, and your book again too. I definitely need to get that.
So my podcast, The Authenticity Experiment, which is not about multi-level marketing, just so people know, it's not about that. It can be found pretty much wherever you get podcasts, on Anchor, Spotify, Google, Audible, Apple Podcasts. Um, I typically have a new episode out every Thursday. I'm taking a little bit of a hiatus because I believe that self-care and taking breaks is important. So I'm giving myself a little bit of time before I start recording again and putting episodes together again.
Good.
And then that Instagram page is at Authenticity Experiments. That's my public Instagram page for the podcast. My personal Instagram is kind of locked down now, so like I don't really give
Okay.
that out anymore. I am on TikTok at Megan Zona Life, Zonalife. And then my book is Cutting Ties, Healing After Multi-Level Marketing. It can be found on Amazon, and it's available in Kindle and paperback.
Nice. All right. All right. Well, what would be the one? I'm going to steal from Danielle. What would be the one takeaway that you would like our audience to take away? Because I know a lot of people are probably going, "You're a weirdo, Stacy Lynn. Why are you doing this show?" But I think that there's what is it?
To pay attention to your gut,
That's what
to
I was going to
listen when
say.
that little voice starts talking, because our gut instinct is never wrong. It's never wrong. It's based in a process in your brain that you can't control. It assesses for safety. When it tells you something is unsafe, or it feels unsafe, or it looks unsafe, or it feels like it might not be 100%, it's probably correct.
Yeah. There you go. All right. All right. Hey, everybody. That was a great interview with Megan. I hope you check out her book, and I also hope you check out her podcast. And if you want to get in touch with her, I hope that you're able to follow her on the information that she gave you, which we will put down here in our notes for you. Also, I also want to just share a an announcement here at the end of the show. We are here now in September, and I want to let you know that beginning in October 2022, if you're watching an old archive of this, I want you to know that beginning in October, I am going to go on a sabbatical. I have been doing this show for 18 years almost. I have never taken a sabbatical in that whole time, let alone even a really lengthy vacation of any type. And so in the month of October and possibly November, we'll see. I will be on a sabbatical. So I would ask, if you're one of my friends that watches the show all the time, I would just ask that you pray for me. as God leads me and gives me a time of rest and renewal and rejuvenation. Um, I know some of you are like, yeah, you need that, Stacy. It's very clear from how you look. You need to break. But anyway, in all seriousness, I will be going on a sabbatical, so we won't have any new episodes of Bible News Radio up in October, and maybe longer. We'll see what God does. But don't forget, you can always watch all of our archives here on this channel, and you can always join our email list over at hearttug.org or BibleNewsRadio.com. Join our email list. Stay up to date with what we're doing through email, because that's the best way to do it. We have been banned on Twitter on our Bible News Radio account, and we're still waiting for the appeal because, Twitter is Twitter and all that. So there you go. I hope you have a great day. And you know what? Be bold, people. Stand up and go with God. I know I've said this before. I'll say it again. Do that because He loves you. And never, ever, ever. If there's one thing you ever get from this show, it's that the Lord loves you. And just never forget that. See you later.